we have today. I saw you hit this pretty hard on Facebook, and the results are in the pudding, right, as they say?
Well, we have very involved citizenry here in
We
Port
do.
St. Lucie, and we're happy to see all of these faces.
Yeah. Well, welcome to Coffee with the Port St. Lucie Mayor. I'm Marisa Aronson from the St. Lucie County Chamber of Commerce. And, of course, we're here with the one, the only mayor, City of Port St. Lucie, Gregory Orbeck.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning. We got a great show today. Mid-Florida, as you know, is our partner in this all year round, and next year we just found out as well. But they don't always come on. They like to give up the spotlight a few times to help out other people in the community. And today, so we're going to be talking with Kimberly Roberts from the school district and talking about some of the programs that they do.
Okay.
So we're excited
Thanks
about
for
that.
letting me know.
We already had our first question in writing.
Yes, it's very formal.
I like it, though.
Signed and delivered.
Hey, it's not anonymous. It's not a post or so.
That's
I love
right.
it.
This person came, delivered, signed it.
That's what
That's
we
gonna
like.
be the first one that I respond to.
It should be, yes. They went through all that trouble, so yeah. And what else? We're going to talk about what's going on. There's a lot of great stuff going on. We'll recap the big opening, the big grand
I
opening.
like it when you say Mid-Florida because Mid-Florida is working to sponsor the Civic Center. There's a proposal.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that coming back to City Council, where hopefully it's going to be $200,000 a year. It was like 190 or 195 last time I heard, but hopefully they're going to round it up and
Really?
carry out that partnership, and just waiting on the paperwork to come back to City Council. So that's exciting to see them be active with the chamber and the city, and they're
And the school
working
district, we'll
really
find out.
hard to be
Yeah.
part of the community. And are you going to be talking about after school and whatnot? What are we going to be talking about? This young lady seems familiar to me.
Well, Kimberly Roberts has been with the school district for a very long time, and she will be coming up. But we're going to talk
What is
about...
it, lights? What is our? Oh, she's going to save it for her segment.
Yes,
Okay.
but she's going to be talking about how Mid-Florida works with them, and they're going to be talking all good programs.
And did you mention Florida Community Health before?
I haven't yet. I did before the show.
No, that was before the show. So,
Yes.
as mayor, you have to be very transparent, and you can't have little things off the record. You have to put it into the record. So you greeted them, and I, of course, asked them, is the building done yet? And people might be wondering, well, what is he talking about? What building? And that is hopefully after they close on the land in the next month. Yes. They'll be going vertical on a 3-story medical, 4? Oh.
4-story. We allow that here in
Not
Florida?
4-story.
In St.
4-story medical office building at City Center. So one of the parcels at City Center right on US 1 is not part of the receivership. Mm-hmm. So it's easier to develop. And they have it under contract. They're going to keep your fingers crossed, knock on wood.
It was privately owned, and so they're able to put something there. We're excited about that.
Well, it was all privately owned, but then some of it went to receivership.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was
It wasn't part of that, though.
correct. It's not part of that rigmarole,
Yes,
as they
yes.
say.
Very good. So I'm excited about it.
All right, they look fired up. Well, she does. I don't know about these two over here. Are you properly caffeinated?
They were out there drinking their coffee, so I hope so.
And I did bring the pumpkin spice. So if anyone wants a repeat cup, there is now pumpkin spice creamer there.
Good.
There's no coffee? We're out of coffee?
How can there be no coffee with the mayor,
I
Marisa
know.
Aronson?
We had coffee. You brought so many friends today. We have a hard time because remember I told them all about the
Maybe
coffee
we
cake
could-
and there wasn't coffee cake.
Maybe we could reduce your palatial corner office by 20 square feet
am
and get the
not a
people some
palatial.
coffee.
Okay, yes. First of all, the coffee is courtesy of our good friends at Your Service Catering who do a great job. And my office leaks, just so you know. It's not palatial by any stretch. So it is not.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's very responsible to the membership of the chamber.
Yes, it is. It really is. We got a great deal.
Did I miss anything on what you?
No.
All right, so we're going to go to the next segment?
Yes, we're going to move on.
All right.
We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and we'll visit with Kimberly Roberts, who's here for Mid-Florida, but she's with the school system.
All right.
And then we'll come back and do questions. All right?
All right, that wasn't the Morningside clap. Let's really clap.
Stick with us, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back to Coffee with the Port St. Lucie. Oh, my land. Okay. I was going to have him escorted out until I realized it was actually the mayor. So, yeah, so I won't do that now. But no, thank you, and welcome back to Coffee at the Port St. Lucie Mayor. We're here with our sponsor's guest. Our sponsor is actually Mid-Florida Credit Union. They've been a great partner to us this entire year. We just found out next year. We're waiting to see what we're going to name the Civic Center. I'm sure it's going to have Mid-Florida in the title somewhere, but we don't know yet. And they've asked Kimberly Roberts from St. Lucie Public Schools to come up and talk to us a little bit about your partnership with Mid-Florida.
Yes.
So welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me this morning. Thank you, Mayor.
So tell us, how is it that you partner with Mid-Florida? And I know that you work in Title I, and we have a lot of Title I schools here in St. Lucie County, which are schools that are on free and reduced lunch.
Yes.
Certain percentages on free. Yeah, very good. And we've always been up against that here, and you do a great deal of work with that. But you also work with Mid-Florida. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you know, community partners with the St. Lucie Public Schools is important to us, and so Mid-Florida reached out to us and asked how they could partner with us and provide either support, volunteering, sponsorship. And so a couple of things that they've done, they have the gift of reading in our school where they come and read with our students for 20 minutes in grades K through 5. And then each kid gets a book. And every year the book changes, which is phenomenal because literacy is the backbone to all of our learning and the fundamentals. So that's one way they partner with us, and that is kicking off in the month of November and December. So that's one big way, which is awesome. So anytime you would like to volunteer and read to our kids, we would love to have you. We can never have enough volunteers reading to our kids. Right, John?
Yeah, John Caesar heads
John
up
Caesar.
the St. Lucie Reads program for Children's Services Councils. I have a question about that. Do you filter them through the Big Brothers Big Sisters program, or do you have your own vetting process?
We have our own vetting. They reach out to the schools and reach out to the principals and work out a time that's best suited for the students in the schools.
Okay, very good. So you could either go through Big Brothers or you could go direct with the school.
Yes, you could.
Okay, that's
Absolutely.
great. What else you got?
Another way that they volunteer is they have offered to sponsor events or activities that we have, whether it be a community activity or a very specific activity at a school. We have discussed some different future activities. I know the mayor loves Lights On After School, and I've always been a great appreciative that he supports that. But we are looking at some other alternatives. One vocabulary that you may have heard of is out of school time. So we're talking about doing something in the spring to spotlight out of school time activities, and Mid-Florida has offered to sponsor that. We're not sure how that's going to look at this moment, but it is on a discussion. And what that is bringing in all the summer camps and activities for parents to get an opportunity to see and register their child for. Because as we know, parents need a safe place for their kid to go in the summer while they're working and we're out of school.
And so Lights On After School is similar to this new program, but it's all about keeping kids busy after school.
Absolutely. So Lights On After School, a lot of that focuses on immediately after school, where out of school time really brings a light to all the time outside of school, whether that's a Saturday, whether that's a Sunday. So we're just trying to change up the name to make sure parents are aware that it's any time outside of school and also summertime as well.
Very
so that's
good.
something coming. So we're still working on that. So I'm super excited that Mid-Florida is going to help us with that.
They've been great community partners.
Yes,
they really
have.
are working with so many organizations here. We're very thankful to have them.
Yes, we are.
Did we cover everything that you're working on them with, or do we?
I would like to just also mention, thank you, they do supply things. They offer water at our events. Sometimes as a Title I district, we don't often have money to provide the little extras for our kids. So providing books, providing pens, providing materials that we can give to parents or kids is really a great asset to us, and we really deeply appreciate Mid-Florida providing that. But also, just their willingness to help also educate our families, because yes, as St. Lucie Public Schools, we have to educate our students, but we also have to educate our parents, because many times parents don't know what they need or don't need, or how to have a checkbook, or how to buy a house, which is so important, and it's a great thing to own a house. So they've offered to come in and do some literacy to our parents as well to support that. So
They also do some events for children on checking and how to
Yes,
do
they
finance.
do.
Yeah, they do. They do a great job.
they helped my son open up a checking and taught him all kinds of great things. So again,
Good. The
it was
importance of managing money. They also started out as a teachers credit union, so the schools are so dear to their heart.
Yes, they are.
Very
And we
good.
are grateful to them.
We are as well at the Chamber very much for sponsoring this and many of the other things that we do. Thank you for coming on today and telling us about your partnership. It's always great to get the public schools out. We'll do a little plug for the schools. We had a 91.8% graduation rate. Yeah. And we're a B school system overall. We're real close to that A. And we're
We're
hoping.
kissing the A, as I say.
Yes, so we should be there soon. I'm excited for that.
I am too. We have a lot of great teachers in our district, and I would like to also plug us and say that I am blessed to work for St. Lucie Public Schools. I believe in our school system. As we all know, there's always work in progress, but we are getting there every day,
Very
one
good.
student at a time.
Well, thank you again, Kimberly.
Thank you very
Thank you to Mid-Florida, our friends at Mid-Florida.
We'll be right back with the mayor, everybody.
Welcome back to Coffee with the Port St. Lucie Mayor. I'm Marisa Aronson. I'm here with the mayor, the one, the only, Gregory Oravec.
Thank
Welcome
you.
back.
Thank you. Let's give another hand to Kimberly Roberts. I think she's wonderful. I always talk about every issue needs champions, or otherwise it never comes to fruition. You never achieve that victory. It's a team effort, but champions help to lead it. When things are on the wane, they're there to pick everybody up. And she was working so hard on all these children's issues. And as she mentioned, we've been working on after school for a long time.
Yep.
You probably know, I don't know if the public is fully aware, but I'm fully supportive of before and after school programs. I really think that they're a natural because you have working parents and you have school hours that don't sync up with work. You have children that we would like to see perform at an even higher level. And we know that structured activities, especially, they can be fun and then they can also be educational.
Very much so.
And if you just tie that in, I just feel like it lifts society up. And so love the work that she's doing, and other partners out there like Boys and Girls Club and others.
Yeah, and Children's Services, that's one of their priorities. So they sponsor a lot of before and after care programs, mostly after care.
They do.
And then Early Learning Coalition of St. Lucie County. They also, that's a funded program that sort of subsidizes those in need for before and after care or education. And they also, everybody in the state of Florida is allowed VPK, voluntary pre-kindergarten hours. If you're a 4-year-old, you get it. And that's at isn't it accredited daycare, or it is a, what daycares can offer VPK, Sean? Oh, there you go, Sue Ellen. Hey, Sue Ellen's here. I forgot from the Early Learning Coalition today, so there you go. Everybody's here.
They have to be contracted.
They just have to be
We want to go ahead and give
contracted.
you a
Well, I'll just repeat it for you. They have to be contracted with the Early Learning Coalition and offer voluntary pre-kindergarten classes. So, and there's no prerequisites. You don't have to qualify in any way. If you're 4, you can go.
For voluntary pre-kindergarten, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's on your agenda?
My agenda, actually, this is, some of this stuff is ribbon cuttings that we talk about off camera, because by the time this airs, we'll have cut the ribbon, as they say. And then we have a couple things coming up in December. We have our annual Christmas party, and it's free and open to the public. We usually get about 400 and some people that go through there. And we're going to have it at Dyer Chevrolet, who do the Dyer Difference every single month here in St. Lucie County. And it showcases our ambassadors. Our ambassadors are our volunteer arm of the Chamber of Commerce, and they come in and you really get to know them and meet them and see what they do for their business besides work for us at the Chamber, because they're all business.
That's not their full-time job.
It's not. Sometimes I bet it feels like it, but it isn't. They do many, many other things. And then I want
Mark's full-time for the chamber, though, right?
Yes, Mark's full-time, Catherine's full-time. There's 4 of us.
4.
4 of us, yes. And then our installation luncheon, which we will install our board of directors and talk about everything that we've done at the chamber. got a lot of things going on advocacy-wise. We have our Development Review Task Force. We'll recap what they've done this year at each of the jurisdictions. And we'll also talk about our new program with the City of Port St. Lucie.
Small Business Assistance Program.
The Small Business Assistance Program, and I'll talk about it real quickly right now, but that's a program where we as a chamber have amassed this great group of experts. I have architects, engineers, planners, attorneys, and we are volunteering our time to help businesses that want to buy, build, expand, lease, anything they want to do where they're going to pick up a hammer. We want to see their plans and see if we can help. We might be able to cut off some problems at the pass. As people buy land or they go into a bay, as you know, that used to be a hair salon 10 years ago, they think they can just open up a hair salon, but the reality is you have to bring that up to code now, and that could mean major renovations. So we want to take a look at your plans so that we can kind of help you, guide you, give you some ideas, and let you know what you might run into. Because we've seen people lose their life savings on signing a lease, trying to open a business that either didn't fit there or it just needed to be renovated so much that it got too costly.
That's absolutely true. And if there was one thing you'd take away and could share with someone in your life, that would be it. So starting a new business in general, people often, sadly, can lose their life savings because the failure rate of startups, right? So you want to go through that business planning process. You want to get a business plan. You want to do some thinking. It's not maybe the best thing to just wing it and say, oh, I got let go from my job, so now I'm going to take the $50,000 that we've saved up our whole life and I'm going to go do this.
Yeah.
Because that happens.
All the time.
And every once in a while, you hear a success story, but really, that's not the path that we would lay out for you. Then the other thing, you brought up the warehouses, which is a classic. A lot of times someone is looking for the cheapest rent possible, so they go to a warehouse district, and then they're curious as to why they can't open a retail business and why the parking doesn't work. And
Yeah.
oh, I didn't know that the wooden loft built inside the warehouse is not ADA compliant, not Americans with Disability Act compliant. And the other thing that happens is if there used to be a single family home on Port St. Lucie Boulevard, and they thought they could just buy this old former single-family home and then turn it into a daycare facility. Doesn't have all the the electric protection, all the fixtures, all the toilets, all the things that you need for a daycare facility. And unfortunately, because they kind of jumped right in, they were so excited, they didn't figure all that out on the front side before they put the property under a lease
Or
and
purchased it.
yes,
Yeah.
so.
It's sad, and it happens way more often than you think because they thought, well, there was a daycare there. Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with now. You really need to do your homework. Same with restaurants. It was a restaurant 10 years ago. Well, those regulations change. So we're excited to do it. It's something that's been a passion project of mine for so long because we do have partners that'll help you with business plans, marketing plans, advertising. We're going to let those partners handle that portion, but there was nobody really addressing the builds, and that's what we wanted to do.
And I'm excited too, but I will let you know that, in my office, I have 3 whiteboards on the wall. So where I like to put all of the important thoughts that come to mind. And just yesterday, I was going through the Small Business Assistance Program, and I wrote that up on the wall, annual report and outcomes.
Yeah.
So look forward, and I know you're very outcome driven.
Yes, yeah,
So
you'll get that.
we made the investment in our partnership and looking forward to the actual outcomes.
I'm already actually tracking that. I've had some email correspondence with people, and I'm like, yep, that's
Yeah.
going in the small business.
Went on the whiteboard yesterday. I was like,
Yeah.
before I file this away, let me put
Yeah.
that up on the whiteboard.
But I think that we should expect to be able to give you outcomes.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, you're very outcome driven, so.
Yeah. I think it's going to be, because people have heard about it, we've already had people coming to us, and we haven't really kicked it off yet. And we're going to do a full advertising campaign. That was part of the plan, because I can do this all day long, but if nobody knows I'm doing it, it's not going to do any good. So we're actually going to do some TV ads and really push this hard to make sure people know this service is available to them.
Okay.
So,
Good.
all right.
Well, I want to thank the Chamber, everyone who voted for Crosstown, everyone who worked on Crosstown, and all the sponsors that helped bring the grand opening ceremony to life. And of course, that dream, that 40-year dream of a bridge over the river to life. So
Yeah.
thank you to you. We since our last coffee with the mayor, we opened the Crosstown Bridge.
I know. That's exciting.
That is, that's, and for as long as I'll be mayor, what will I get to talk about that's more exciting
I know,
than
yeah,
that?
it's sort of the pinnacle, right?
Yes, I'll see you
Building a
later.
bridge, yeah. I don't know how you top that.
Yeah, it was incredible, and hopefully, has everyone gotten to use the Crosstown at this
driven
point?
over it. I'm like the only one.
You haven't been over it yet, seriously?
I have not.
Oh, wow.
I
Wow.
have not. I don't love heights.
It's not that high. Yeah, it's not that. Yeah.
I'm trying to think what else
As
fits
far
into
as
my
as far as bridges go,
revenue. Yeah, I live out west.
I think you should drive it soon. As as the head of the chamber and a good friend, I think that you should drive it and enjoy it.
I know.
So it's thank you, Raynell. It is very pretty. It's iconic.
The pictures.
It's
are
a postcard now. It's one of those postcards of the city. The art at night is beautiful. I think it's going to open a lot of people's eyes to the beauty of the St. Lucie River.
And hopefully that east corridor as well, because I'd love to see some great stuff happen over there.
Yeah, you wouldn't know because you haven't been on the bridge yet, but
That's going to be the rest of the show, people.
when you walk or drive it, you can see the river in a way that you do not see it on Prima Vista Boulevard or
Right.
Port St. Lucie Boulevard, and you're like, wow, I can't believe that we've been living here with this asset. And it really makes you ask yourself, are you accessing it? Are you loving the river? Are you enjoying it the way that you could? And I want everyone to know that right there, even before our park gets done underneath the bridge that we're building, there is a state preserve on the river, right basically where the bridge comes down and touches US 1. If you just make that right to go southbound on US 1, there's a driveway.
Yep.
And you were probably like, I wonder what that is.
That's been there for a long time.
If you follow that all the way back, you will find an ADA-compliant canoe kayak launch that was actually done as part of the Crosstown Project. The city paid to redo that launch. And that is part of, we're all familiar, I think many of us are familiar with the Savannas, and we think of it as being right there on the ridge, by the Indian River Lagoon, further to the east. But that's actually the Savannas St. Lucie River Aquatic Preserve right there.
Well,
And just to confuse us, they call it Halpatioke, because there's not
Yes.
enough other Halpatioke parks, but
not
technically
enough
that's
things
true.
in general that end in okie.
But that's right there for you, and I hope that more people will use that as a result of seeing the beauty of the river. But it's doing what it was intended to do, and that's get us across town much faster. So it's cutting the drive time about in half.
It is? Does everybody notice that? Who lives over there? Maria does. I knew that. And Michelle, is it traffic less? You seeing a difference?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah,
Still have some things they're doing, but yeah.
there's a little bit of construction going on. And then we're going to start, the county, who is in charge of Prima Vistas, started that too, so that might hamper the full effect that we get from Crosstown for a little while.
So when I drive to Orlando, I usually take the turnpike, and but because I wanted to use the Crosstown as much as possible, unlike my co-host, I went US 1 to Crosstown.
To 95?
It took me 11 minutes and 7.95 seconds to get from the turn lane on US 1 to Wheels on I-95.
Really?
Yes, and that was hitting the red light to get onto Crosstown, so I had to wait for that. And I hit about 1.5 lights along the way, still made it there. And that was going the speed limit, Trissa, the speed limit.
Why do you say it like that?
Like that? I don't know. I'm not going to put it into the record why I'm saying it like that, but let me just say you know why I'm saying that.
Can I just say the new traffic enforcement is really hampering my ability to get places.
Actually, I'm glad that you brought that up. So that's one of the complaints or the concerns that we hear most in the city of Port St. Lucie right now is about traffic and driving behavior. And our chief of police
Looking at me.
has declared this the year of traffic enforcement. And we have allocated additional monies in the budget to get additional traffic units out there enforcing the laws on our roads. So please drive carefully. Otherwise, you may meet Port St. Lucie's finest.
Yes.
for an education and or enforcement activity, depending on your behavior, sir.
Honestly, I knew, and the chief had let me know early that you guys are doing this, but I never get anywhere without seeing less than 3 traffic enforcement policemen.
Well, unfortunately, they can't be everywhere at the same time.
No.
And at the end of the day, it's not the city that's causing this issue, right? It's the drivers and personal responsibility, but we have to step in, unfortunately, when that breaks down. And it's a big city. We have about 1,000 lane miles of roads, 120 square miles. It's a big place. Mm-hmm. It's my hope, though, eventually, we have 5 patrol districts in the city.
Yep.
It's my hope that there'll be a traffic enforcement unit for each district. And in that way, even though right now we have to prioritize high volume roads,
yes,
like Crosstown or PSL Boulevard.
And Becker.
And places where there are frequent speeders, once we get to that level of coverage, then we can address some of the, maybe not as high volume, but important neighborhood complaints. So that is important, and that is definitely on point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's one of the big things that we hear. The chief and the police department have heard it, and now we're going to try
And
to
now we've
move the
seen
needle.
it. I've seen it. It's been moved.
So friend Gary Smith is out there, people serious about litter. He has, and the city has, a litter symposium coming up at the Civic Center in December. Is it actually Pearl Harbor Day is the date of the event at the Civic Center? So you know in Port St. Lucie we're building something special, a safe, beautiful, and prosperous city for all people. We can't achieve that vision without doing the basics right, and the basics include making sure that our city is not littered. So we hope that you'll participate in that, and we hope that you'll help keep Port St. Lucie beautiful.
That was nice of you to mention it, because he's been really working hard on that for a very long time.
Oh, he's one of the hardest working guys I know. He lives in St. Lucie West, but he adopted the Darwin Square area, and basically for every morning for how many years?
About 8.
8 years, went and picked up another neighborhood, and more importantly, recruited additional volunteers to help, and kind of created an organic movement. So we like that.
He does a great job.
He does. He's a Rotarian.
Yes, he
You know,
is.
you can count on the Rotary.
Sunset Rotary, right?
No,
No?
PSL Rotary. And he's like a Rotarian from way back.
I want to get to questions, because I know we're going to have a lot today, but I do want to mention that we are on the second, we meet down here at Council Chambers the second Friday of every month at 8:30, right here in City Hall. So,
I got one other thing on my agenda.
oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, quasi judicial proceedings. All right, so a lot of times in a city, not just this city, but any city in Florida, from time to time, we have special exceptions or other type of applications which require the city council. You know, the city council is a legislature, right? It's a legislative body. It makes policy, it makes laws. In Florida, cities have home rule powers, which means that they can make any laws that aren't reserved to the state, right? To the actual state government. They sometimes preempt us. They say, no, you can't make a law on that because we're going to make the law. But everything else, that's what home rule power is all about. In Florida, cities can do that. Port St. Lucie can do that. So predominantly, the mayor and city council, we're a legislative body, right? But sometimes we have to act in a more judicial capacity, and that's quasi judicial. Makes sense, right? Like judicial. So whereas when we're legislators, and we have our legislature, we have broad latitude to make laws. The courts, they don't want to replace the legislature with themselves. So they give us a lot of deference. They're like, you know, I don't know if that's what I would do, but that's your right as a legislative body to come to that determination. But when it's quasi-judicial, now all decisions have to be based on substantive evidence, substantive competent evidence placed into the record. And so if you've ever seen like a cell tower or a restaurant with drive-through or a gas station, you might have seen this as being a special exception. It wasn't permitted by right, but the applicant can make a case that they're compliant with all these criteria under the code, and they can seek approval. Well, I don't want to get into specifics because that would be like talking about a court case outside of court. It could be considered prejudicial, but in general, there's a couple big ones out there right now. Like if you live in Verona or some other places, you might be really fired up on these issues. And as a matter of course, I don't meet with interveners or the applicants on Quasi Judicial before the hearing, only at the hearing, because that'd be like meeting with the judge before your trial. And that's generally frowned upon because it's prejudicial. And it's really important, like at a public hearing, you can normally say basically whatever you want. And at these hearings, you can participate. But if you want your participation to matter, it has to be factual.
Yes.
And so that's a really big difference, because at a lot of public hearings, at a second reading of ordinance, you can come up and say, I don't like it because.
You can, and that happens a lot.
But when you go to Quasi Judicial, now the fact-finding body has to determine, well, is this an expert speaking on this issue? Is this factual? Or is this just opinion?
Right.
From a layman, a lay person. So there are a number of resources out there. I'm trying to make sure that our quasi-judicial procedures are online so we can refer people to that. And there's also a couple good guides out there, because again, this is not the only place that has them. Every one of the 412 or so cities in Florida has it. The county has it. So we want to help people understand that process so that they can participate, but also be effective.
Factual.
And let me just give you an example.
I was just going to say that. Can I break it down with what?
Yeah, so if you thought a convenience store was going to add crime to the neighborhood, and let's say you sent an email to the mayor that said, well, everyone knows that convenience stores operating at night add crime to a neighborhood.
Which is based on nothing factual.
So if I'm acting in the capacity of a fact finder in a court-like setting, how would someone want me to give that weight? So that person has to be an expert and recognized as such to be able to give that opinion so that it holds weight, or there should be a reference to a credible resource, right? So that's really important, and that's how it's different. Because when you're in a trial, if you're in one of these proceedings, you can't just go on assumptions and hearsay.
Yes. Or accusations in some instances.
We got some big ones coming.
I know.
I think
know
I
what
might
you're
have.
talking about.
I think I might have written 30 emails on one application 2 days ago. Well, unfortunately, there's more than one of those coming.
Well, I would like to say, from a chamber standpoint, we represent business. We're a business organization, and there are codes, there are design standards, there are zones, there's comp plans. There are lots of things that determine what businesses can operate in what areas and how they should look and how they should operate. And as long as they meet those codes, I think it's important to understand that those business owners have rights to operate those businesses, as long as they're within regulation, design standards, and codes. And I also don't like it when people make assumptions that this is certain types of businesses are going to bring crime, or they're going to bring, I actually heard the word riffraff, which I don't think is a statistical measurement of people. Riffraff. And so unless they can back that up with some proof, I think it means very little. And I hope that any judicial legislative body feels the way you do, that it needs to be sourced, it needs to be credible, or it's just somebody's opinion, realistically.
Well, so each case is different. It's actually fact specific. But sometimes legislative bodies forget that they are in a quasi-judicial proceeding. And sometimes that's okay, and sometimes they're reminded through another legal proceeding that the facts were misapplied. So it's just, and that's why I don't meet beforehand, because there's something called disclosure of ex parte communications. So technically you're allowed to meet with people, but then you have to disclose it on the record, and then you have to actually explain what was said. And if everything's friendly, that's fine. But if it's not, then it gets pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So
that's citizens always, this is not just our citizens. This is citizens everywhere.
Oh, this is everywhere.
The whole world over, there's a tendency to say, I don't want it near me. I don't want this in my backyard. And I get it, but it really should be steeped in fact.
No, but conversely, it might not belong there.
It may not be, but you can
and-
determine that.
That's right, but you have to do it by
Through
the
facts,
criteria through
yes.
substantial competent evidence.
You're absolutely right.
So I wanted to get to Mr. Smith, but I'm just going to ask if it's okay. I see my friend right now. She's got to go to work. Did you have a question before you go?
Mark, if you can,
I just wanted to make a quick comment.
Okay.
Mark's coming quicker.
So he's heavy lifting, not the speed.
I just wanted to make a quick comment. First of all, I wanted to say thank you for a wonderful Crosstown Parkway. We drove it a few days ago, and I was so impressed with the whole layout, the engineering, everything about it just looked just terrific. And I like the land berms that make it very nice for the people who live on either side of it, and I was very impressed. That's the first thing. But the second thing, I want to make a comment, and thank you for giving me a moment because I do have to go to work. Is that I would like to make Port St. Lucie a destination touristia for anybody and everybody. I know worldwide we've had people come here to Club Med over the years, but I would like to see Port St. Lucie become a tourist destination of Florida, and I think that can happen because of this river, and I see the starts of it beside the botanical garden and the development that appears to be going on or will be going on there. But I think we can really capitalize on our river as making it a real port for excitement and beauty and entertainment. And I think that we can go forward with that kind of a vision for this city because it's a beautiful city and we've kept it so well, and people do comment on that. I tell me at work a lot, you know. So I make that comment. And
Thank-
I have
thank
to
you, Renelle.
thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us. So on Crosstown, a lot of people worked hard for a long time, including former Mayor Patricia Christensen, who's here with us today, and just speaking for our team. I think the council and our administration, our city manager, his administration, very grateful for the opportunity to be that anchor leg of this multi-generational relay race. We didn't drop the baton, we got across the finish line, and it's really a reflection of all your hard work. And then 89% of the public voting, yes, we will make that bridge happen. We will pay for that bridge happen. I get excited because to me it's a reminder of when 89% of us decide that we're going to do something, there's nothing that we can't do. Mm-hmm. And that is a physical testament to that idea. I do think that we can increase tourism in St. Lucie County. We do, of course, have Club Med on the river. The city is working on the Westmoreland project. We are breaking ground on the connection of the boardwalk from the north side of the bridge to the Westmoreland Park site, which is just to the south of the Botanical Gardens. We do have a letter of intent from Manatee Island Restaurant for a waterfront restaurant. We are working on a world-class park. We do have 2 historic structures that have been relocated, and we're working to renovate those. We do expect to do an overall Riverwalk master plan for that whole corridor, not just the Westmoreland piece, but going all the way to Lingate. We do expect to put additional destinations there, and Raynell left, but if you really wanted to be ambitious and dream big on making St. Lucie County more of a tourist destination, I would say take Crosstown Bridge to the island, and St. Lucie County, who's been talking about a beachfront resort for as long as I've been here, which is 2002, build a beachfront resort, bring the Crosstown right there. That's how you would do it.
All right. Well, that's probably it for tourism because we, of course, sit on TDC. And
Yes, don't say anything.
yeah,
Well, it was so big and controversial, she won't say anything about that. Anyways, actually, bringing Crosstown Bridge to the beach is not controversial. 90% of Port St. Lucie residents want that to happen. It's controversial with maybe the people on the beach and some people in St. Lucie County. But for Port St. Lucie, it's not controversial at all. We did a scientifically valid survey this last year and asked that very question.
yeah.
So what I always say on that is when the political will of the people of Port St. Lucie is greater than the political will of the resistance, it'll happen. But it just might take decades to happen.
I say
And
30 years.
we should plant the seed now, just like someone, and someone's really planted the seed for the Crosstown Bridge 40 years ago, 1980. They planted the seeds. Those seeds grew and bore fruit this, just on September 28th.
All right, well, seed officially planted. You guys right here.
Not yet, it's not in the comp plan. But Edwin Kemper Smith Jr. wrote so beautifully, actually he typed so beautifully.
Very tiny font.
It's not that bad, it's probably 11. Recently I read about 44 major retail chains and 19 major restaurant chains reorganizing or going out of business entirely. All had store closings in their proposals. With your comments at the last coffee about how the city has worked hard to keep the millage low, to not raise taxes, what is the city doing to address the potential of lost future income? So that's a great question. And I'd say that you've hit on a complicated topic. Why is it complicated? Because you're talking about land use, zoning, and success of a business sector that's in flux. So retail is changing due to online retail. And we're seeing that across the industry. Shopping malls aren't getting built anymore, really. The traditional mall is not happening in America anymore. But others are. You're seeing a shift to more lifestyle uses in restaurants. So that's happening. But why does it get complicated? Because the city is able to apply land use and zoning. And then once it's given, it's a property right. And in the state of Florida, there's the Harris Property Act and some other laws that actually make it a taking if the city downzones property to a less intense use or land use. So what does that mean? That means if the legislative body has already designated something for general commercial, and now it wants to say, you know what, we're not going to have that much general commercial, we're going to make that open space recreational.
Right.
That's now a taking under the law, and they can argue to be compensated for that. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of cities weigh in, jump in there and just go at it on a completely proactive side. Fortunately, in Port St. Lucie, we are still growing so much and our population's growing so much and we're under-retailed that it's not a critical problem for us yet. I do, though, reflect on the US 1 corridor and some of the older shopping centers there. In a world where there isn't as much retail, is that necessary for retail? But how you get from an existing land use and zoning to something else with the government imposing, that's really hard to achieve. So you can only start to have conversations with property owners, I think, stay in touch with them and have the conversations so that they decide to go in a different direction and the council has a sense of whether or not that's consistent with the community's vision for the city. So it's great, it's a strategic consideration, but the city doesn't have a magic wand on that one that we could just make it happen. In the same way that we can't say, you're going to be Cheesecake Factory. We could say that property that Mark is sitting in could be a restaurant, but we don't choose which restaurant. In tradition, there is a proposal for a Dairy Queen. Mm-hmm. And some people are really upset that a Dairy Queen with the drive-thru is going in. They want something else. But they're okay with Panera. So from the city's perspective, they're both restaurants with drive-thrus.
Yes.
When you get into regulating brands, we can't do that.
Yeah.
So in the same way that we can't do that, we can't say, well, you have general commercial rights today, and tomorrow we're going to take them all away. If we do that, we have to be prepared to pay for it. Now, maybe to your point, they won't be worth as much, so it'll be an easier pill to swallow. But in our city of 200,000, and I don't know if you've ever watched any of the budget hearings or anything, how many people are going to pick changing that shopping center designation to commercial general, to open space recreational or multifamily or whatever you think the viable use is, over building sidewalks, Port St. Lucie Boulevard South, fixing the traffic at Par and Savona, California and Del Rio, reducing the millage, lowering the debt, or all the other considerations. So that's a deeper conversation. Let's have that. It's a provocative question.
I think it's important to note, though, that you're also trying to find ways to better our economy through partnerships with the EDC and trying to attract manufacturers, which is a great boost to local economies. beyond retail. I've had this conversation 3 times this week. We had it yesterday. I had it at my Community 101 we do at the Realtors, but retail is a result of economic development. It is not economic development, but the city, the others, Fort Pierce and the county are working to bring true economic development programs to Port St. Lucie and all of St. Lucie County. And that's where I think our future is going to lie, because as we move towards a more globalized economy, people nowadays know about, and now through the internet have access to products they never knew about or had access to before that can't possibly be carried on a local level. So I don't see that trend of online shopping, changing a great deal. And Amazon just put in a fulfillment center in Fort Pierce, so you can get that product within 24 hours in many cases. And so I think we have to be thoughtful and creative in working towards finding new economic drivers for the local economy. And I'm not sure retail, as you know, is probably going to be one of those. But you'll still see it coming up because they have to service our people. We never are going to stop going to restaurants, right?
Well, I mean, I said you never know what's going to happen in the future, but for the foreseeable future,
For the foreseeable, you and I probably are.
People, like the experience. That's something that can't be recreated. It's not quite as good when you get it delivered, even though there's all these delivery services. And that's what we're seeing the shift to, right? We're seeing the shift from typical bricks and mortar retail to more experience-driven locations. And a big part of that, of course, is food.
Of course.
And a lot of people's disposable income goes towards eating out.
It does.
So the market is going to help dictate a lot of that. But I'm really glad that you carry that message that economic development is not retail development. Very rarely do they overlap. There's a couple exceptions, but remember that economic development's about increasing the size of our economy and really, hopefully, increasing your share of it, right? So we want to create jobs, but not just any jobs that raise the median income, your income, in our economy. That's economic development, and you can't get there with $9 and $10 an hour jobs. So you need jobs in St. Lucie County that pay over $17 an hour, $18 an hour. That's where we need to be. And then next year, that's not going to be good enough. Then we're going to want to be $20 or $21 an hour and more. So that's what economic development's about. And I do appreciate you bringing that up, because that really is our focus in the jobs corridor, that 3 running miles from Tradition Parkway to Becker on I-95, where you are kind of anchored by Cleveland Clinic on the north. That whole area where City Electric's gone up, where Oculus is going up, where Excel International is going to build multiple warehouses and manufacturing facilities. That's where we're pouring all this effort, where we hope to see the Cleveland Clinic bring the Lerner Institute down from Cleveland and the vaccine group out of Australia and occupy and do science in the BGTI building at the same time that Torrey Pines has worked out a strategic relationship with FIU, and there's a proposal for FIU to purchase the Torrey Pines building. And to see biotech grow there and to spin off, we should expect that there will be many spin-offs from those collaborations and their hard work. So that's what we're focused on.
Yeah.
And we'll have to see where redevelopment takes us in response to the changing market. And but there's at least one shopping center on US 1 that probably, I think, should be residential community. I mean, I think it should be redeveloped into a residential community rather than a strip mall. So I love the question, but it's that's a master's level, maybe a doctorate level.
Yeah, some of these are big picture, but that's okay. We could probably take a couple questions. I know we're running out of time today. We've got, sure. You can introduce yourself if you want to.
Christopher Thompson, resident of Port St. Lucie. So I'd just like to thank the mayor, first of all, with leading the city council in the recent millage rate reduction. But I just want to point out that the county commission recently voted to keep the millage rate the same. And when asked about that, they seem to put the blame on this city for why Port St. Lucie residents have, depending on what your source, have one of the highest, if not the highest, aggregate millage rate in the state of Florida. This city, obviously, especially in tradition, has a pretty bad record for economic expansion and picking winners and losers. And so while the leadership in both the city and the county commission is touting these new projects, the citizens, meanwhile, are getting soaked by taxes. If you compare, for instance, a $250,000 house in PSL, your combined property tax is about $3,800. In Palm City, it's about $1,000 less and about $1,500 less in Vero Beach. So apples to apples, we're just getting soaked when it comes to property taxes. I'm wondering how you feel about the comments of the county commission, who you think is more to blame for the high taxes that the residents are experiencing, and what the city is doing to bring our taxes more in line with our neighboring counties. Thank you.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, he's an attorney, and in the business, we would call that a leading question, right?
The candidate.
And I mean, the predicate was like 2 minutes long to get to the question. But I appreciate the questions, and what I'd say is that it's not how I feel, it's what I know. The city of Port St. Lucie, when we look at comparable cities, when we look at local cities, the city has a better than median property tax rate, and we're driving it lower every year. It's part of our strategic plan, and that's a big part of why we've lowered it 4 years in a row. And this year we almost lowered it $0.25 so that the average homesteaded property owner in Port St. Lucie would realize an actual tax decrease in absolute dollars. So your taxes, if you're the average homesteaded property owner in Port St. Lucie, your taxes went down this year. And so we're driving that at the same time we're carrying out that rest of the strategic plan and doing the parks and probably more importantly for a lot of you, the transportation improvements and everything else, the sidewalks, staying the safest large city in Florida, all the things that you want to see, paying down debt, that's all happening simultaneously. The issue of the aggregate tax rate is correct. And you identified Port St. Lucie. Fort Pierce has it worse because Fort Pierce has a higher city property tax rate than the city of Port St. Lucie does. So their aggregate rate there is even higher. And for a good 10 years plus, St. Lucie County has had one of the highest aggregate property tax rates in the state of Florida. Sometimes Volusia County is up there also for that title that you don't want to have. And what's important we've talked about it for, even when I wasn't here, so three coffees with the mayor in a row, we've talked about the fact that Port St. Lucie only has 2 line items out of the 16 or 17 tasking authority line items on your trim notice or tax bill. The city only controls 2 of those, City of Port St. Lucie and PSL voted debt. PSL voted debt is Crosstown. Mm-hmm. Those are the only 2 line items on the millage portion of your tax bill that your City of Port St. Lucie has control over. But we all live here and we're all impacted by the tax environment. So I'm critical. That's, for me, I want us to be number 1, and I don't think you can be number 1 as a community if you have the highest tax rate, unless you can really prove that the people want that highest tax rate and they're getting this bundle of services that's important to them.
Yeah.
I am okay with being value driven. I would, even though we're trying to drive that rate low, I would like to see the city in the top quartile, but I never advocate for being the cheapest. I want us to be the best. I want us to have highest value. That's the value is the relationship between, the price, the cost, and the benefit. And so I want you to pay the least to get the most, but that doesn't mean that you're the absolute cheapest. St. Lucie County is high because the county that's not my purview as mayor of the city of Port St. Lucie. That's not something that I've diagnosed at this point. I couldn't tell you why at this moment in time, why that is. But it's something that I've said that I'm going to look into this year. So this year, I'm going to actually study that and share my findings with you and everyone here on exactly why that is. And I anticipate that I'll send a letter to the chairman of the county commission asking for her help in identifying and diagnosing this issue, just so we could have some transparency and accountability.
Very good. All right, probably one more question, maybe?
Okay.
Yeah, our good friends from Florida Community Health.
Just a quick question. Do we have an expected completion date on the sidewalk project on the bridge going into South Bend?
I can get it for you. I don't have it. I drove it yesterday and saw that, it's been poured for the most part. But Sarah? I have to look it up. Will you grab that? Thank you.
But they're working really hard. I mean, there's a lot going on there.
No, it'll be relatively soon, but contractors get rain days and other things, so it's fluid.
It rains in South Florida?
It does. A lot this week.
Learn
in
something
fact.
new every time I come here.
I've been begging for the US 1 to get repaved where Crosstown connects.
Yeah.
And they weren't able to pave but one day this week because, rain not only stops the contractor on site, but if you're ordering asphalt, it shuts down the plant.
Yeah, they can't
So
stir and pour.
rain can really extend a project. So we'll get the answer for
Especially-
you. We just get your contact info. But I would imagine it's going to be done in the next couple months, be wrapped up. Concrete was poured. They were doing finish type work.
Okay, anything else you want to share with everybody before we head out for the weekend? I'm excited about that. I mean, I'm not actually leaving now, but still, I'm getting closer.
Yes.
I'm not.
No, I appreciate it. These questions were heavy questions. They got me deep in thought.
They do. They're always good questions. I like the questions from the citizens. I was talking to our friends from Kings Isle, and I love going out there because the citizens have the best questions. I find that the realtors too. You should come with me to that sometime.
Oh, I go to the realtors. Love the realtors.
Yeah, for Community 101. All right, well, I want to thank Mid-Florida again for their partnership. They've been great all this year, and they will be great all next year. And don't forget
Don't put a limit on it. Don't put a limit on their greatness.
Oh, there's a limit. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm happy to have them as our partners going through next year. And coffee and pastries, courtesy of At Your Service Caterer. Great coffee cake. They did have that today. I doubt if there's any left, so don't run out there. And then don't forget, you can watch us on Comcast 20 and Uverse 99. Of course, our YouTube channel, you can watch it on demand at at your website, cityofpsl.com. if you go to PSL TV. And I think with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Thanks to the mayor and thanks to your
Thank you
staff
to the
here.
chamber. Thank you to you.
And thank you to all of you. I hope it's not raining, but we'll see you next month.